Hello, everyone. Good evening. You are all very welcome to our Mission Month webinar. And the theme of this year's celebration of Mission Month is Missionaries of Hope Among All Peoples. Being missionary is an inherent part of being Christian, and we join in solidarity with the overseas missionaries through prayer and donations. My name is Christina Scanlon, and I'm delighted to be your host here this evening. Before I introduce you to our guest speaker, I want to let you know that you will have an opportunity at the end to submit any questions you may have. You can do so by typing them into either the chat button or the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Also to let you know that this webinar is being recorded and it will be available to watch or re-watch on our diocesan YouTube channel in a few days. So if anyone you know can't watch it online tonight, they will be able to see the recorded version in a few days. So our guest speaker tonight is Fr Sean Cremin. Fr Sean is going to share his experience of being a missionary overseas in Sudan and Kenya. Fr Sean is assistant leader of St. Patrick's Missionary Society, the Kiltegan Fathers, and he is from the parish of Knocknagree in the Diocese of Kerry. So I'm going to hand you over now to Fr Sean. I'm really looking forward to listening to him speak, and we're delighted and very grateful to have you here with us tonight, Fr Sean. So welcome and thank you.
Thank you very much, Christine. Thank you very much. And I think they might have an issue in Knocknagree. The Knocknagree is in the parish of Rothmore. We're part of Rothmore Parish. But thank you for inviting me and for being part of this webinar for Mission Month. And I suppose I just want to speak from my own experience a little bit about what mission is and has been for me. You know, in this month of for Mission Sunday, the Pope's message, it's still Pope Francis's message. He wrote the message for Mission Sunday for this year. And one of the things he says in his message for Mission Sunday this year, he says, our fundamental vocation is to be in the footsteps of Christ, messengers and builders of hope. Now, one of our priests, Father John Joe Garvey, has been a St. Patrick's Missionary Society priest for over 50 years. And he has worked in countries like Kenya, Rwanda. He went after the genocide in Rwanda in 1994, in South Sudan, and now he's back working in Kenya, in the Diocese of Nakuru, where he began all those 50 years ago. John Joe is from Mill Street Parish, which is in the Diocese of Kerry, and is the chaplain to the prison in Nakuru, in Kenya at this time. So he visits the prison. He celebrates Mass. He meets, he chats with some of the prisoners and the staff. Sometimes he teaches a bit of maths. He also teaches some Bible studies and prayer. Recently, he told me a wonderful story. He said, having celebrated Mass once in the prison in Nakuru, one of the prisoners at the end of Mass had the courage to stand up and said she wanted to say something to John Joe. And what she said to John Joe, she stood up and said to John Joe, Father, she said, thank you for coming, because your presence gives us hope. Thank you, Father, for coming, because your presence gives us hope. And I was wondering, what does it mean to give and to receive hope from other people? You know, I'm a priest of St. Patrick's, as Christina said, St. Patrick's Missionary Society, the Kiltegan Fathers, which was founded in 1932 by an Irish diocesan priest, Father P.J. Whitney, who was ordained in Maynooth in 1920 and comes from the Diocese of Elphin. That's the diocese where the present Bishop of Kerry comes from, Bishop Ray Brown. And at that time, it was really, really a bold move to even think about forming a group of priests to go on mission. No one thought that he would have the courage, the ability to do that, but he had. So he began St. Patrick's Missionary Society. He had the courage, not only had the courage and the ability, but he had faith and he had no small amount of hope. Hope that everything would work out okay. So then what does it mean for us to say we are missionary priests? Or we are all missionaries, as Christina said at the beginning. Everyone is part of being Christian to be missionary. What is our role at home and overseas? And I thought of those words that prisoner said to Janjo when she stood up and said, "Thank you, Father, for coming to visit us, because your presence gives us hope." To me, that was a powerful representation of something what it means to be a missionary, to bring hope in difficult situations and often downright nearly impossible situations, to bring hope into those moments. Now, what more would one want to share with someone else? What more would one wish to receive from someone else is that experience of hope. Sure, isn't it something we all looking for in our own lives? Hope for my own life, hope for my children, hope for my family, hope that everything will be okay as I go through life, hope that our futures will be okay. Father Kieran Birmingham was a former leader in St. Patrick's Missionary Society, and he put this in a beautiful way when he talked about St. Patrick's priests as missionaries. He said what it means to be a missionary priest is, he said, a willingness, he said, to leave one's own country, to cross boundaries created by language, by culture, by worldview, to recognize the Spirit at work in all peoples, to risk new ventures, to take on new ministries, to face the pain of change and entrust ourselves more deeply to the Lord and to the future that Providence holds for us. I thought that was a beautiful expression of what it means to be a missionary. You know, the final one there is to entrust ourselves ever more deeply, no matter what is happening in my life, in our lives, in our situation, to entrust ourselves ever more deeply to the Lord and to his providence for each one of us. So being from Knocknagree, I'm a Cork man. My parish is Rothmore Parish. And there's a surprising connection between Rothmore Parish and the founder of St. Patrick's Missionary Society, going back 100 years. Can you believe that? 100 years. As I said, Father P.J. Whitney was ordained in 1920. Immediately after he was ordained, he volunteered to go and work in southern Nigeria with Bishop Joseph Shanahan, who was a Holy Ghost bishop from southern Nigeria, originally from County Tipperary. So Father Whitney went to Nigeria on mission. 3 years later, in 1923, Bishop Shanahan asked him to come back to Ireland for a particular purpose. And his purpose was, Bishop Shanahan had already started a group of missionary sisters, the Holy Rosary Sisters, and he needed someone who would go the highways and the byways of Ireland looking for people to support this new congregation of missionary sisters. And he asked Father PJ to do that work. So Father PJ returned in 1923 to do that work. As he was traveling, he used unique ways to invite people to support mission. He traveled around Ireland in a motorbike. He had some lectures, he had slideshows, he had even dances, it seems, so that he could promote mission in Ireland at the time. And that would have been a very novel way of promoting mission in Ireland in the 1920s, I would think. So the connection between Rothmore Parish and St. Patrick's Missionary Society, Father P.J. Whitney, comes from the newsletter of March 2007, when the former principal of Knocknagree National School, John Stephen O'Sullivan, who was also my teacher, he took an article that was printed in the Cremin from February 14th, 1925, and published it in the Rothmore newsletter of March 2007. And the little article says the following. For the Whitney, it says, of the Nigerian mission is to deliver a message, a lecture in the convent schools here on Friday night. His address will be illustrated by pictures. A brief concert of the convent school children will follow. And considering how worthy the object is, and the admission fee is only 1 shilling, it is hoped there will be a large attendance. The Reverend Gentleman will deliver a lecture in Knocknagree on Wednesday night and Guineaguilla on Thursday night. It will be interesting to compare the support given in the 3 villages of the parish. End quote. I thought it was a great idea of the Cremin to pit the churches of Knocknagree and Guineaguilla against each other in order to support this venture. Now that was February 14th, 1925. And this evening, 100 years later, I am talking to you. I joined Kiltegan in September 1987. And as well as studies to prepare for priesthood, part of my training was that I would go abroad to some mission for 2 years. I was sent to northern Kenya, to a parish in the Diocese of Lodwar. I remember very clearly arriving in Kenya. I remember very clearly driving from the capital Nairobi of Kenya to Lodwar, which was over 600 kilometers from Nairobi. I remember traveling with another St. Patrick's student at the time. Everything was new. Everything was new. It was more than a culture shock, I can assure you. After the initial excitement, there was a sense of settling down and missing home, being homesick, loneliness, being far away, no WhatsApp messages at that time, getting used to a new language, the culture, the weather, the roads, everything. It was, as I say, quite a challenge to adjust to that new place. And it took some time. It took some time. But after the end of those 2 years, I then returned to Ireland and I had to ask myself the question, is this what I would like to do with my life? Is this the kind of life that I would like to live? Would I be happier doing something different? I think these are questions we all ask at some stage of our lives. What choice, what path do I wish to take? What journey do I wish to take? I'm no special in that way because of that question. Other people have asked the same questions over years. What I was lucky was to have people to accompany me on that journey and to help and to guide me. And well, at the end of my stint in Lodwar Diocese, I said that I would like to try and continue on this journey towards missionary priesthood. And I would put my trust in the Lord and to entrust myself to the Lord and hope that everything would work out okay. I was ordained then in 1997 as a missionary priest for St. Patrick's with 2 other young men, Cathal and Martin, both of whom are working and living in Zambia at this time. I returned to Kenya in September 1997. It was exciting to go back to Kenya. It was exciting. When I arrived in Kenya, I went to the mission where I was appointed, back to the Diocese of Lodwar. I went to join other priests, sisters, volunteers who were working on that mission, and just entrusting myself and hoping that things would be okay. It's the gospel message, go, teach, go. Don't stay put, move. What we have received, we're invited to share. Then after 2 years in Lodwar Diocese, I was asked by our society to move to another mission of St. Patrick's. It was in a neighbouring country, in Sudan, the Diocese of Turit. And there I joined another Kiltegan priest, the late Father Tim Galvin, who was from Brosna Parish in Kerry Diocese. And sure, when I was asked, I said, okay, let me go. Let me try. Let me do my best. Let me go. Now, putting it mildly, it was quite a challenging mission. It was a reminder, I suppose, that missionary life can be very challenging life. There were ups and downs along the way. They continue to be ups and downs along the way. But then I said, isn't this life for each one of us? For every person, life is up and down. Some days are better than others, and in some way we have to find some anchor with which we negotiate these ups and downs of life. For me, it was about just, again, the culture shock, the loneliness, continuing to learn the language of the people, working with the local communities, living with people who were in a civil war situation at that time, and growing in love for the people to whom I was sent. The people to whom I was sent were called the Ninyangathom people and the Toposa people. And they are beautiful people. I also knew I was not on my own. I joined Tim, sisters, and many, many lay volunteers over the years. Tim had been in Sudan since 1983. I came in 1997. And he told me many stories about his life in Sudan since he came in 1983, and of the ongoing civil war and how that affected the life of people and the life of our society priests. Many, many times over those periods of time, what was started in one parish was disrupted by the civil war. Our people, the people had to move, our priests had to move, and they would move to another place and begin again. You know, missionary life is not always about glamour. It's not always about glamour. It's not always about excitement. But in some way, it was the ability and the courage and the perseverance to stay with people in oftentimes seemingly difficult, impossible situations. I suppose the fact that Tim had stayed there since 1983 and I was joining in 1997 gave me a lot of encouragement. In the parish where we were, Good Shepherd Parish in Yangachur, there were pastorless people. So we choose the name Good Shepherd as the title of the parish. We were busy, as well as celebrating masses, baptisms. We were also providing education, healthcare clinics, training of catechists, meeting with the elders, the youth, and a lot of other maybe not very spiritual activities like providing clean water, borehole drillings, educating people on how to maintain boreholes, also talking with people. I say we spent hours under trees talking to people about what we were trying to do. It was in a way getting to know people and the people getting to know us. It was a beautiful time, you know. I suppose I recognized that life moves at different paces in different peoples. And one of the things that we're invited when we go to another place, to another culture, we're invited to tune in to the rhythm of the people. If I don't make that effort to do that, I can end up on my own. So there we were, a Cork man and a Kerry man in a faraway corner of Sudan. And we often joked that if a Cork man and a Kerry man can live and work together in a place like Good Shepherd Parish in Yangachur, then surely it must be possible for anyone to do it. Certainly there were challenges, but it was a great time. Since then, since St. Patrick's Missionary Society was founded in 1932, a lot has happened. A lot has changed. Hundreds of our priests have gone on mission. I've gone in Africa, South America, in the United Kingdom, Ireland, and America. And most of those priests, all of those priests, were from English-speaking countries, most from Ireland. But in 1997, the Society took a momentous decision to recruit young men who wanted to be missionary priests from the places where we were working. So we began recruiting from places like Nigeria, from Kenya, from Malawi, from Zambia, from Cameroon. And as of now, we have about 75 missionary priests ordained who are working in different missions of the Society. Here, in your own diocese, in our own diocese of Kerry, you have 5 young men from Kenya who would have grown up with St. Patrick's Missionary Society priests in their home diocese of Eldoret and Kitale. Recently, I celebrated a Mass with the Bishop of Eldoret, Bishop Dominic Kimmingich. And Bishop Dominic at that Mass spoke about the young priests from his diocese working in Kerry. The people were delighted. They were delighted to hear news of their priests working in Kerry. When he mentioned their names and how proud he was of them and how proud their families are of them working in faraway Kerry, there was great applause and ululations in the church. In some way, their presence reminds us that we are one church. Yes, from different places, from many peoples, many cultures, but one church, one faith in the person of Jesus Christ. On the 28th of September 1975, 2 priests from Kerry Diocese arrived in Kenya. They were Monsignor James Sheehan and Father Pat McCarthy. These men were the beginning of the Kerry Nakuru mission. And among the people who welcomed them in Nairobi was a man called Bishop Joseph Houlihan. Bishop Joseph Houlihan was the first bishop of the Diocese of Eldoret in Kenya and a native of Ballyferriter in Kerry. The Diocese of Eldoret, of which he was the first bishop, is the diocese from where these 5 young men who are presently working in Kerry have come from. Father Amos, who's in Castletownbere, Vitalis, who's in the Cathedral in Killarney, Timothy is in Milltown, Sus Peter is in St. Brendan's Tralee, and David in St. John's Tralee. It's a circle. It's a circle. Pope Francis, in his message for Mission Sunday, says that we are all called to be bearers of hope. And even though he said the church faces difficulties, as well as her own imperfections and failures due to the weakness of her members, the church is constantly impelled by the love of Christ to persevere in union with her on her missionary journey. Isn't that wonderful? You know, we go, that missionary mandate, go, that Jesus said 2,000 years ago. Jesus said, go, go. We are compelled to go despite our own limitations and imperfections. Now, Kiltegan missionaries, St. Patrick's Missionary Societies continue to go out. The priests who serve in these places now for St. Patrick's Missionary Society, many of them come from Nigeria, from Kenya, from Malawi, from Zambia. They go out. They are the ones who are going out on mission. Our newest mission, our very newest mission is in the Amazon in Brazil. And we know the Amazon. There's a lot of talk about the Amazon and the destruction of the habitat in the Amazon. And we have gone on mission to a diocese called Tefe in Brazil. And much of the time, that our lads spend getting there. Takes quite a time. Much of the travel, all the travel is on boat, 7-8 hours to the parish where they're working. But they're on mission. They're on mission. And they are going out. And they are bringing in some way that hope to the world that they are bringing, that we of the gospel message they are bringing. What we need as missionaries, as St. Patrick's missionaries, each one of us, I think what we need is faith and no small sprinkling of hope in our lives. That whatever situation I find myself in, that we find ourselves in, that God is still working through us, despite the challenges we face, despite the joys, despite the challenges and the sorrows. God is working through us at this moment, at this particular time, and whatever the future is, we entrust that to Him. We do our part here and now. I would like to return to that prisoner who, on behalf of all the other prisoners, said to Father John Joe, "Thank you, Father, for coming, because your coming brings us hope, because your presence gives us hope. I hope that your coming and your listening this evening brings you some hope in your life, and it also inspires you to share that hope with other people." Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Father Sean. That was really great and very inspiring. So thank you for that. What we're going to do now is we're going to take a little bit of time to reflect and to just process what we've heard. We have a lovely reflection video prepared for you, and we'd like to credit Father Joseph Gibberin, who's also a Kiltegan father. He made this video, and I think he might be tuning in watching tonight. So, as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions for Father Sean, now is a good time to submit them through the chat or the Q&A option at the bottom of your screen, and we'll do our best to respond to as many of the questions as possible. So let's just all take a few moments, relax, and enjoy the video. Thank you. Okay, so I'd now like to introduce my colleague David Sheehan, who will present your questions to Father Sean. Many of you will recognise David's name and his voice from our diocesan radio programme each Sunday morning, Horizons. So you'll now get a chance to put a face to the name. Good evening, David.
Hey, Christina. Thank you very much for that lovely intro. Thanks as well for your presentation, Father Sean. That was wonderful. First question I see here is someone is asking, are there any books on hope that you would recommend?
I would read the message of Pope Francis for Mission Sunday. Begin with that. Missionaries of hope for among all peoples. I'd say begin with that as a way of just introducing to hope. That's what I would say off the top of my head, David. I'd say that's what I would say would be very helpful to read. It's a beautiful message. It's not very long, but it's very inspiring about that.
Very good. Someone else asks how they can donate. We'll actually have a slide at the end, so you don't need to answer that one. Someone here asks a double barrel question. So the question is, would you do it again? And would you change anything in the way that you did it?
Would I do it again? Yes. Yes. I mean, I suppose when you're young, adventure is part of young people in life and doing something new, changing. Remember what the quotation from Kieran Birmingham, risking new ventures, do new things. Yes, I would do that. I would do that again as part of, especially young people. It's a great adventure, and it's a challenge. It's a very great challenge that actually helps an individual to grow as well in confidence in themselves and in their own abilities. So yes, would I do it again? Yes. Would I change anything? I don't think. I'm sure. Like the Pope also says there. Pope Francis also says, despite our imperfections and our drawbacks ourselves, we still go. So I would say, I don't know, would I change any? Would I go back and change anything? It was just good to be there. The important part of being there is getting into the rhythm, I found, of the people, learning a bit of the language, trying to understand how people think. Now that I enjoy that, I would do that. Maybe a bit more effort at the language would be something to do. But I know I would do it. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I must say I enjoyed it very much.
Speaking of the language, another question came in wondering how you dealt with the language barrier in the places you were at. I don't know, in Sudan, do they speak Sudanese or can they speak English? Or how were you able to bridge that gap with people?
Yeah. So, when I went first, it was one of our own priests, Father Jerry Carl from Sligo. He was my teacher in the language. He'd been in northern Kenya for many years, in Turkana for many years. So the language in northern Kenya, southern Sudan, where I was, is part of what's called a Karamojong group of languages. There are similar languages with different dialects, a bit like Irish, Donegal Irish, Kerry Irish, West of Ireland Irish. So I learned from Jerry, but I never stopped learning the language in some ways. But when I went to South Sudan, it was more isolated place. So it forced me in some way to engage with people because there was no English when we went to the villages. There was no English. In the school which we had in the parish, we were using English as a medium for teaching. But when you went out, you had to know the language. So we learned it that way, trial and error. And a lot of people helped me. There was one very good Toposa priest, Father Aliardo Lokuru, an elderly priest from that diocese, and a great friend of St. Patrick's. And he was great to help me learn the language. So it's hard work, but it's worth it.
Trial and error is kind of the only way to do it properly. You have to fail before you can properly succeed.
Yeah.
I have a good question here. Obviously, missionary commitment is over quite a long period of time. Is it possible for people to do missions over a shorter period?
Yeah. 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 As one part of my presentation was there, over the years, certainly in our mission in Sudan, we had lay volunteers that came working with us. Some were there quite some time, lay volunteers from America. Some were there quite a while, maybe 3 or 4 years. Some were there 2 years. Other people came for 6 months, that kind of period, 1 year. Even in the last year, we have had a great lady from Dublin, originally from around Abbeyfield, who spent 6 months in one of our missions in South Sudan. So it is possible, David, it is possible. I think the important thing about mission is to prepare for it, because it can be quite different than maybe where I am now. So preparation is important before one goes.
Very good. This isn't a question, but there's just a comment here related to what you were just talking about from John McGee in Mill Street, saying he spent a year as a lay volunteer in Uganda. So that goes on both of the points you were just talking about, that there are lay missionaries and also that you can do it for just a year period. We'll make this the final question, but somewhat related to the language one is, how do you deal with and prepare yourself for the culture shock of being in a different culture with sort of different habits and routines and traditions and things?
We were preparing, as missionary priesthood, preparing for mission priesthood prepares in some ways to go abroad. But, when I went there was nothing prepared me for it. It was just, it was all the theory I knew. But when it actually happened, I know there was nothing prepared me. You just have to go through it and get the support that you can from people around you to help you manage the situation. But you can talk about it and do about it. Until you do it, you won't know what it really, really means. That's my experience. It's my experience.
Very good. I said last question, but I'm going to do one actual last question. Just coming in there from Susan, wondering if she said she did a year volunteering when she was younger. And do you think older people can do volunteering now? And I'll make this the last one for sure.
In short, a lot of things need to be taken into consideration. But in short, yes, I would say yes. But you need to talk and to prepare for it before you go. But yes. And just one other one, David, on John McGee there. I saw his comment there. He worked in Kiriandunga, which was northern Uganda, which was a refugee camp for southern Sudanese who had been displaced out of Sudan into Uganda. And he worked with two of our priests there. I saw the names, John Gary, I think, and Tom MacDonald. So yeah, I know those lads very well. And I have never been to Kiriandunga, but I know of it.
That's great. Thank you for that, David and Father Sean. So now World Mission Sunday will be celebrated on Sunday, the 19th of October. And it's the Holy Father's annual appeal for spiritual and financial support so that the life-giving work of overseas mission and missionaries can continue. Missio Ireland is the Holy Father's official charity for overseas mission and is part of a global network serving the Church in over 120 countries. I'm now going to introduce you to Sylvia Thompson. Sylvia is a volunteer with Missio Ireland, and she spent 3 years as a lay missionary in Peru. Good evening, Sylvia. How are you? Sylvia, your microphone might be turned off there.
So it was. I didn't click it strongly enough. I didn't have my breakfast properly. Yes, I was a volunteer also, one of those lay people like John and like others. And just in response to that previous question, I didn't go when I was a spring chicken, and I survived the experience. So Missio Ireland, imagine it's a whole year since we spoke about it, but the work of mission has continued all through the last year. And people like Sean, Father Sean, have been working tirelessly with all its challenges. And so have the 5 who came here to Kerry. and hopefully we are all supporting them. So it's that Irish branch of the Pope's charity, the Pontifical Missionary Societies. And this is the money that we collect on Mission Sunday. And this year, we're having this webinar a little bit earlier. So that gives you lots of opportunity to get all your little bit of euros together so that you can give them in, and we'll tell you about how to donate, be it in your parish or online or by phone. You can even do all of those things. Finance is one thing, but support through prayer is something else. Now, I'm sure some of you were listening to Horizons and you heard Father Sean speak about the little flower, St. Teresa. I think you were speaking on the day of her feast day. Somebody who never left her convent, and yet here she is, the patroness of missionaries. And when I had my little stint in Peru, I know that I was hugely helped by the people back here in Ballymac. Sometimes it was a card or it was an email saying, you know what, Sylvie, we prayed for you last Sunday at Mass. Because it's not always a bed of roses. There are challenges, there are lonely times, there are wonderful times, and there are difficult times. And so that support that we give through the odd email, or maybe the support is maybe you are a supporter of the Africa magazine or the Far East or the Holy Ghost magazine, whatever missionary magazine you get. Do you read it? And there's lovely things in them. And you know what I do afterwards? I drop it up to Tralee Library or the train station, so other people can avail of it as well. You don't need to throw it in the bin afterwards. Great recycling. Every country has a mission director, and the person at the moment is Father Michael Kelly. And guess what? He's another Kiltegan priest. So the Kiltegans seem to be flying high at the moment. We have a local priest who's Father Ger Godley, and he is our director of missions here in the diocese. And every diocese around Ireland has a mission director. And guess what? In 2024, in Ireland, 1.4, a little bit more than that, million euro was collected for the missions. Obviously, there are lots of requests for help. And in the last year, some of the money from Ireland went to dioceses where help was needed to fund students studying at home, studying abroad. They could be priests, they could be religious sisters or lay people. Money was needed to train catechists. Children's projects in Burkina Faso were helped. Some buildings were renovated. Some buildings were built from scratch. Seminarians in places like Tanzania to Sri Lanka were supported. When you think about the missions, it's the whole world. From wherever, maybe we're here in Ireland, we're the home mission, but we heard Father Sean say, go, go, go. And we can always go with our prayer, and we can certainly go with our money. So this Mission Sunday on the 19th of October is our big opportunity. But don't forget them until that date, and don't forget them after the 19th, because prayer is needed continually to support them in hope. This is our Jubilee year of hope. And I know as we speak today, we think of another hope. We have the hope for peace in the Middle East. Is it small? Is it big? But we have that hope, and we're all praying for it. And the people in all those missionary countries are praying that we will support them. We will support them in our prayer, and we will support them with our finance. So please do it. And you can see now in a slide that David is going to share how you can donate. So you can donate through your parish. It might be a special envelope, or it might be a second collection. It can be online at missio.ie or over the phone. Look to Missio Ireland, 01 497 20 35. Thank you so much on behalf of Missio and missionaries, lay, ordained, religious sisters, volunteers all over the world. God bless.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. So before we finish up, I'd like to give the last word to Father Sean. Do you have any final words or comments you'd like to make, Father Sean?
Thank you very much for inviting me to be with you on this Mission Month. I suppose it's a real privilege, and I suppose, as Sylvia said, we don't go, missionaries don't go on their own. They go and they're sent from a place. So the places where we come from and where I come from is very important. And I'm very grateful for all the support that people have given, spiritual and otherwise, over the many, many years to me and to many other missionary priests. So thank you so much. And I wish you every blessing as you celebrate Mission Sunday. Keep hope alive.
Thank you so much, Father Sean. So that brings to an end our webinar, and I'd like to thank you all at home as well for joining us online here tonight. I hope you all really enjoyed it. So until next time, have a lovely evening. Take care, good night, and God bless.